Hello everybody, welcome back. So we're doing something a little different today. Normally I don't care about spoilers, right? Like, I want to make a video on them, they're cool, I'll look at the cards, yada yada, we'll move on, right? We'll wait for the set to come out properly and then we'll go from there. However, I'm a huge fan of the Eldrazi. So they already spoiled Emrakul a little bit ago, a few months, but when I saw that they spoiled both the two new Kozilek and Ulamog as well as the face commander of the Eldrazi deck, we're going to look at those, give my opinion on them, and that's pretty much all it's going to be this video. Something super easy. I don't plan on doing a lot of these, kind of videos, but I'm super excited for Eldrazi, so we'll look at them right now. Okay, so the first card we're going to look at is the one that was spoiled a little bit ago. It's Emrakul, The World Anew, 12 mana, colorless, legendary Eldrazi. It's a 12/12. So far, pretty normal. When you cast a spell, gain control of all creatures target player controls, flying, protection from spells, and from permanents that were cast this turn, which is interesting. And then when Emrakul, The World Anew, leaves the battlefield, sacrifice all creatures you control, and Madness, pay 6 colorless. I'm not going to lie, I would have preferred them to have put all 6 of the colorless symbols, but this card is pretty cool. Like I said, it's been spoiled already, so I'm sure a lot of people talked about it before. I do enjoy, the first ability is really cool, right? It's a cast ability. You can get the Madness cost only 6 mana, but you have to pay the colorless mana for the 6 for the Madness cost, whereas the 12 of the initial casting cost can be any color, because it doesn't have the little diamonds, so it's not the colorless, it's just generic. The protection from spells and from permanents that were cast this turn is very interesting. Specifying a card this turn is probably like the first that I've seen that I'm not aware of on a card, which is interesting. This card, it's definitely better in the 99, just for the Madness ability. I am going to be ranking these more on like Commander versus Modern, because I don't play Modern. I play Commander for the most part. It's definitely a cool Commander. I do think the 12 for 12/12 it's cute. It's fine. And then the last ability, when it leaves the battlefield, sacrifice all creatures you control, which obviously would be if you cast a spell, you gain control of everyone. You target players' creatures, so they'd sacrifice their creatures. So I don't know how you would work this deck as like its own commander, because like colorless aristocrats I don't think is a thing. To my knowledge, I mean, it probably could be, but all the good aristocrat stuff is in black. I don't know, overall this is a pretty cool card, but I don't see it really being a good commander. Again, you can ramp pretty good in colorless just because, the Tron lands, granted a little harder to find in commander. Overall, it's a really cool card. I think it'll fit really well in my Crewfix deck. And yes, I know this card is supposed to be a modern card, so that's why it doesn't fit the best, but I'm evaluating it from a commander standpoint, so. Okay, so next card I want to talk about real quick is Kozilek, The Broken Reality. It's a 9 mana legendary Eldrazi for 9. It's a 9/9. When you cast this spell, up to 2 target players each manifest 2 cards from their hands. For each card manifested this way, you draw a card. And then manifesting a card is putting it on the battlefield face down as a 2/2 creature. And then if it's a creature card, you can turn it face up for the mana cost. And then the bottom ability, other colorless creatures you can control get +3/+2. This is a weird one. So when you cast a spell, 2 target players. If you have creatures in your hand, you're probably targeting yourself for up to one of the 2 targets. So you probably target yourself. So that's at least 2 cards drawn, potentially. And if you target somebody else, and it's not even a May ability, they have to do 2 cards. So obviously pick someone with cards in their hands. Unless you don't want anyone to have anything, you can pick the person with 1 card in their hand so you get 1 less. But again, the bare minimum, you can draw 0 cards if you really wanted to. Or just have an Anthem effect for 9 mana, which is kind of garbage. Or you cast a 9 mana spell, 2 cards from your hand on the battlefield that are 2/2s, but then they get pumped up to be 5/4s. So for 9 mana, you get a 9/9, 2 manifest card from your hand that are 2 5/4s as well. So I don't know, it's not bad. And then you can also target another person, so they would also have their own manifest cards, but you would also get to draw 4 cards as well. I think it's a pretty interesting card, but I think the coolest thing about it, honestly, is the Anthem, especially with the new cards coming out from the Commander deck from Modern Horizons 3. Is going to be all Devoid stuff, so it's going to pump up every single Devoid creature Eldrazi, as well as artifacts too, so you can just make an artifact deck with this and be popping off pretty good. It's okay. I don't know. I think this is, in my opinion, my least favorite of the Kozileks. Granted, it's just been spoiled today as of recording, so who knows if some crazy stuff's going to happen with it. But the art's sick. Again, I didn't mention it with the Emrakul, but the art is amazing. But yeah, that is the Kozilek Broken Reality. I think it's a very interesting card, but it's certainly not my favorite. Okay, so now we have a weird one. This is a weird card. So it's Ulalek Fused Atrocity. Now, I don't know if they've come out and explicitly said it, however, but the name Ulalek is a combination of Ulamog and Kozilek. Their names have been fused together, and the name of the card is Fused Atrocity. So, all clues would be pointing me to believe that this is Kozilek and Ulamog fused together. That's why I count it as a Titan. And it's also the face commander of the Eldrazi commander deck. So it's Ulalek Fused Atrocity. It's 5 mana. It's hybrid Wooburg with colorless. So you can't pay any generic. It has to be either the diamond shaped colorless or any of the one of the Wooburg colors. It's a legendary creature Eldrazi. It's a 2/5, which is a very weird stat line. But I think I understand why when you look at the ability. It's devoid, so it's technically colorless. Whenever you cast an Eldrazi spell, you may pay 2 colorless mana. Not generic, it has to be colorless. If you do, copy all spells you control, then copy all other activated and triggered abilities you control. You may choose new targets for the copies. Mana abilities can't be copied. So this card is pretty good, I feel. 5 mana is not a lot, especially because the commander identity is technically all 5 colors. So you can run green. You can actually run those colors, and then Devoid only has effect when it's on the battlefield, so it's technically colorless when it's on the battlefield, but anywhere else it's that color. In your hand, on the command zone, that kind of stuff. Being able to basically copy an Eldrazi spell, but then also you pay 2 mana, get an additional Eldrazi spell. So let's say one of my favorites is Oblivion Sower. So say if you cast Oblivion Sower, 6 mana, you pay 2 extra colorless. So it'd be 8 mana total. You would get 2 Oblivion Sowers, and you get 2 Oblivion Sower triggers as well, which is ridiculous. For 8 mana. 2 bodies, 8 cards exiled, all the lands. I believe I'm reading the card right, and again, my rules knowledge is not 100%, of course. That's how I read the card, so if I'm wrong, correct me, but I think this card's kind of nuts. I have a Jaleva Void deck, right? So that deck basically cares about the Eldrazi processors more so than the other Devoid Eldrazi's, because Jaleva's ability puts cards in exile. Then all the processors can just pull from them right away. It's a lot easier to get cards in exile. So I hope with this deck and the theme that they're going for here that they include of some of the processors in the actual deck. We'll see. But as it stands, this is definitely going to be replacing Jaleva in that deck. It's 5 colors. You get access to more colors. You get green and white. I don't know. This card is very cool. I think it's a really cool design space. There's finally a 5-color Eldrazi card. And we'll see how it plays. It's going to be very expensive, I think, because it's Eldrazi. So the last card I'm looking at here, and I think is the most powerful of all the Titans spoiled, in my opinion. I could be wrong. I also like to just, hit things with big creatures. We have Ulamog the Defiler. It is a 10-mana legendary creature Eldrazi 7/7. So it's breaking the mana cost is equal to the power and toughness. But there's a reason for that. So when you cast a spell, target opponent exiles half of their library, rounded up. So first off, that's insane. 10 mana, you get a 7/7, and you just half your library gone. Get it out of here. This is gonna be good in mill decks. Second ability, Ward, sacrifice 2 permanents. Granted, that's not too bad because, you have tokens, you have treasure tokens running around, clues, so it's not as taxing as you would think. It's not like the Sauron one where you have to sacrifice a legendary permanent, but still pretty good. And then, Ulamog the Defiler enters a battlefield with a number of +1/+1 counters on it equal to the greatest mana value among cards in exile. So you just exiled half of someone's library. The average CMC, I think, in EDH right now is, granted, I might be wrong, I just googled it real quick, I think it's 3.5. So, on average, you're probably going to hit 3 at the bare minimum, right? Bare minimum 3. So it's going to be a 10/10 regardless. On the high end of this thing, you hit an Omniscience, you hit an Expropriate, you hit some crazy, the Great Henge, it's 9 mana. Just something insane, right? So this thing gets, let's say, 8 counters on it. So now it's a 15/15. And then, the last ability, which is crazy, it has Annihilator X, where X number of counters on it. That is insane. Granted, +1/+1 only, not any counter. But so you hit a 7 mana thing, right? Then it's going to have Annihilator 7, which is crazy. And another thing to note with the exile, too, it's anything in exile. It doesn't even have to be off of the cast trigger. So if you exile something earlier, from your hand, or like you foretell something, that's technically exiled. You can plot something, I think that's technically exile. There's just a lot of ways that you can play with this card, and it's going to be great in a green deck because any green deck that cares about +1/+1 counters can, if you get the cash trigger anyway, then you can also add counters to it. Anything given this thing haste is just like, I don't know, this thing can end a game, I think, with if you give it haste. Like, this is a threat that needs to be answered like turn 1, or not turn 1, the turn it comes down. This card is definitely like on the level of Blightsteel, right? Blightsteel comes in, trample, infect, give it a haste, you could potentially kill one person. If they have blockers, it's not as easy to get through, on a base level. They have blockers that can block 2 points of damage, are still alive. But with this Ulamog, I don't know, I think this card can be better. It doesn't have indestructible, but you give it haste. Let's say it has 5 counters on it. Let's be generous. So give it 5 counters, right? So it's a 12/12, Annihilator 5. Then if you have, it doesn't even have to connect. That's the crazy thing. You swing with it. Annihilator 5 is on the stack. Cards like Lithoform Engine, Strionic Resonator, something that copies triggered abilities. Boom, that's another 5 more cards. So Annihilator 10, basically, with not even having to do damage. But I'd rather be killed in fact than have my stuff annihilated and I sit there and had to concede myself versus getting killed by something. Again, that's just me. But yeah, this card I think is probably, of the 4 cards you've looked at, this is probably my favorite and probably the most powerful in my opinion. This card is just crazy. Well, there you have it. There's my not professional, off-the-cuff thoughts of these cards. I don't know, like I said, I don't really do these a whole lot. I'm not a huge fan of like looking at review cards and stuff like that, but like I said, I had to look at these because they're Eldrazi. I'm a huge fan. I think all these cards look sick. I can't wait to see what the pre-con decks look like, especially the Eldrazi one. And the Jund one actually looks pretty cool anyway, as well. The Goyf one. But yeah, there you have it. There's my thoughts. If you want to see some more stuff like this, let me know. Like I said, I don't really do these kind of review stuff just because I'm not a huge fan of them. But yeah, I'm like not really good at like picking out cards that'll be really good with them. Oh, look, this combo. Like, nah. I just like look at the cards and explain them in my 2 cents. But anyway, thanks for watching. Catch you guys later.